Welcome to Perspectives with Catherine Toon. And I have one of my all-time favorite people on the planet with us today. And if you don't know him, which I can't imagine why that would be, but if you don't know him, you will fall in love with him too. His name is Kyle Butler, the exalted, what was it, Bishop Grand Poobah, whatever we decided. Kyle is a former pastor, but is everything he does is inspirational, motivational. Grab him for your speaking venue. He has so much richness that he just flows out of him, and just love exudes. He can't help it. It's just what he does and how he rolls. So Kyle, welcome. I love you. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I know you said the word he a lot, but I thought you were talking about you with that intro because it sounds just like you as well. And had you not said he, I would have thought you were talking about you because, all of those things you said about me it's you entirely too. So thank you so much for having me. And I love you, as you know, and, when I first met you, through Henry Harris, actually, on his show, I knew right away that you're a person I really needed to connect with and get to know. And I'm so, so glad I did.
Well, it is so mutual, and we'll just be sitting there going back and forth, gushing. But but I'm sure that you have something brilliant. Kyle is a very deep thinker. One of his things that he always says, it's good to think, right? And so he does that, and he comes up with such profound things. It's amazing. So we were talking a little bit earlier about some kind of a thought that you'd had, and sort of extrapolating on that. So tell us kind of what's on your heart. We were talking about identity, however that is. Kyle, take it away.
Yeah, I love to think, and to me, things have to make sense. And that's in every area of life. So as we grow, right? I was this little boy, and I was fascinated by gadgets and radios and things. And I was fascinated how they worked. I wanted to know how they worked, and I would try to take them apart. I try to get inside of them because I wanted to see how things worked. And I was always fascinated with that. And then as I got a little bit older, I started getting into home improvements, electrical, plumbing, and carpentry, and all those kind of things. And I was, again, fascinated by how stuff works. And once I learned how electricity works, the general concept, it started making sense to me. And then plumbing and carpentry and all these things. So things need to make sense to me. And I think about things, and it needs to make sense. So same thing with life and growing up in a church environment. So much of my church experience in the beginning, it didn't make sense to me, even as a little boy. Yeah. And I would sit in church, and I would be paying attention. I was one of those aware kids, so I wasn't like an aloof kind of, kid that was kind of zoned out to everything going on around me. I was pretty aware. I understood what the adults were talking about, but it just never made sense. And then I got kind of programmed to believe you can't really ask God questions, and you can't ask people questions. You can't challenge anything. You can't think about anything. You just had to take the narratives as they were and say amen and keep it moving. And I did that. And, honestly, I was miserable because I was trying to understand how what you said was love made me feel so bad.
Yeah, right? That is not the fruit of love, right? I feel happy.
Right. If this is love, why am I always so afraid? If this is love, why do I always feel like I'm not good enough? If this is love, why do I always feel like I'm so far outside of your love, your grace, your will, your mercy? I mean, just right. It didn't make sense. And then as I got into ministry, I started to try to find ways to make it make sense within the narratives that I knew, because I didn't even at this point consider that maybe the narratives were off.
Right.
Or, just perhaps.
Right.
Yeah. And so that kind of led me to where I am today. Someone who is very, very comfortable questioning, talking about, and perhaps rewriting the narratives.
Right. And they've got to be up for grabs, because whatever's solid It'll only be more solid in our own mindsets as we question it and grapple with it. It's like, yeah. And then whatever's not, well, it's not. And it needs to be broken off or done away with or whatever. So that's great. I love that mind. I mean, you were created with that mind, which was created that way to bless humanity, right? I mean, that's part of why you inspire and motivate, is because you have that mind to look back behind the scenes and say, wait a second, this is, this is not doing it.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I love that. That's so great. And what a contribution, because, and also the freedom of being able to do that, right? Because if you're not free to, you're not free not to, you're not free not to, you're not free to, right? And so, right. And so, we get to be that. So we were talking a little earlier, you mentioned something about identity, which I thought was so brilliant. I was chewing, I was like, oh, this is good. So so give us your brainchild this morning, which is awesome. Talk about what you were thinking about.
Yeah, I was thinking this morning, the thought hit me, and that's really kind of how a lot of this works for me. A thought hits me, and and I think about it, and often it's like, yeah, that's true. Now, let me say this to the listening audience: me reworking, rewriting, retelling, or kind of tearing apart a narrative, that's what I do for me. Like I said, it has to make sense to me. So to the listening audience, maybe some of the things I say won't make sense to you or won't fit within you or your narrative, and that's perfectly okay. I like to tell people, you can believe whatever you like. I can believe whatever I like. I'm not going to be upset if you don't believe what I believe, and please don't be upset if I don't believe what you believe, because guess what? I don't have to live in your head. I got to live in mine. So I got to find how it makes sense to me. Right. It would make sense to me. So the thought hit me this morning, Catherine, that once we find out who we really are, or once we discover who we are, or awaken to who we really are, or become consciously aware of who we really are, then it's really easy to kind of get rid of and see who we're really not. For example, we came up in my church, and from early on, they told me I was a sinner, that I was on my way to hell, that I was going to burn if I didn't get saved, that that I had to do a lot of stuff. So I got this long list of who they told me I was and things I had to do. And I didn't know any better. I said, okay, well, I don't want any bad thing to happen, so I better get in line and toe the line. But one day I discovered, wait a minute, if I am, and I don't Kenneth Copeland credit for the piece here. I was listening to him back when I was a Copeland night, and he pulled up a verse in chapter 17 of John chapter 17. And it says, Jesus is praying, and he says, Father, show them that you love them just as much as you love me. And maybe I've read it before, being a pastor many times before, I don't remember, but all I do know that day, it was like, whoa, what? How can that be? Because that was like a slap in the face to everything I'd ever thought about me, about humanity. We can't be on that same level with Jesus in any kind of capacity. So when I heard that really got the ball rolling, So, once you realize that you are loved with this great love, then it's really hard to kind of see, well, I can't be that. I can't be that dirty, wretched, no good, unworthy sinner if I'm loved just like Jesus is loved. Or I can't be this person that has to do all this work to get God's approval if this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. So once it captures you and you see for yourself who you are, it gets really easy to start to get rid of all that stuff that you're not.
Exactly. All that stuff that made you feel afraid, less than, not enough, dirty, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And that's so true. And that's the starting place, because you can't start from what you're not. Right. right? Because that's like trying to stand on ground that's not there, right? And so, right, so you have to stand on something solid. So you're saying, well, if God loves me as much as he loves Jesus, right? Like if I'm that lovable and that valuable, then what does it mean for everything else?
Right, exactly.
Right?
And that was a launching point.
Yeah, I mean, that's so huge. And I think so many people struggle with that. And religion is a business that takes advantage of trying to, sell you the fact that you're what you're not, or what you are a sinner, you are this, and then you got to jump through all these hoops and tithe and give us money. Well, we're trying to get out of that place, because apparently God loving you is not enough, or you being as loved as much as Jesus is not enough. So you're never enough, right?
Yeah. Religion created a problem. Religion said, okay, this is the problem. You're this in God's eyes. And then religion also tried to create a solution. But the solution they created really didn't put you in a place of being better. It just put you in a place of being slightly better.
slightly less dungish. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And the design is to keep you beholden to the system of being unworthy, so that you think you're working in this system makes you a little bit more worthy, but you'll never really quite get there. So it was a brilliant plan, whoever came up with it, I mean, because it worked so well, right?
It does, across so many different spheres, because then all of a sudden having to work to be worth something. And if you have to work to be worth something, you're never worth something.
Exactly.
As good as the hoops you jump through, and there's always more hoops.
Always. Yeah. We grew up in that environment. And, I remember we would have these long revivals. So it'd be a week revival or 2-week long revival. And we'd be there every night. I'm talking about from 7 o'clock to 12 o'clock, every night. And, so the next Sunday, if you decided, you know what, I'm not going to church today, you would feel a truckload of guilt, even though you just spent 2 weeks in church every night.
Right. Oh, so horrible. It's making me tired just hearing you talk about it.
Right. So you get this mindset that nothing's never enough.
Yeah.
I mean, today I couldn't even consider doing such a thing. I would say, no way in the world. I remember, and also things, I could be pretty sarcastic, right? So when things stop making sense for me, then my sarcasm kicks in.
Yes.
So I remember telling a friend of mine, when I say, you know what, if I never go to church again, I'm okay. I'm okay. I put in enough time. And they said, well, how could you feel that way? Don't you think God will be upset at you? And I would say, look, I tell God face to face, hey, God, look, I gave you nearly 40 years every week. If that's not good enough, I don't know what to tell you.
Put in your time.
I put in my time. I don't know what else to tell you.
I mean, and it takes everything out of the place of relationship, right? It's about some sort of service that we got to jump through to keep a grumpy God at best happy.
Right. Which is impossible.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So you wonder, who are you actually talking to that has that kind of, because honestly, I wouldn't want to, all due respect, Kyle, if you were like that to me, I probably wouldn't be wanting to hang around you. And so if God's like that, why would we want to hang around him?
Right.
It's painful.
Right.
We have a pain. We're needing pain relief, right?
Exactly.
Not augmentation.
Exactly. And that's the beautiful part about what we're discovering from within ourselves of who we really are. We're discovering that we're not this low grade creation that God despises. We're not this set of beings who is inherently flawed. We're not these creatures who would God would much rather throw away than to save. We're not any of those things. We're divine beings created out of divine source of all good and love, and this is who we really are.
Absolutely.
And there's so many aspects about how we have devalued ourselves, and the things we've done. Really, when you look at it objectively, from a distance, you're looking at the things we did, the things we believed, the things we said, and you're looking at it objectively. You're saying, wow, we really did devalue ourselves. We really
Exactly.
did put ourselves in a place of being less than who we really are. And we did it thinking this was what we're supposed to do.
And
But, as I said, once you see it differently for the first time and you start to really indulge in this possibility that you are a divine being, that you are perfectly loved, and you are perfect love itself. When you start to really indulge in this ideal and these thoughts, and it starts to resonate inside of you and rings from the inside of you, it becomes a lot easier to hear things and see things about your old thoughts and beliefs and say, no, no, definitely not. You know?
yes, I know. Absolutely. I mean, and that really is freedom. I mean, it's so heartbreaking when you think of it, because if God is love and he created a race of children that look just like him in their flavor, so why would he create something he despises? I mean, it's just so,
Right,
like, who came up with this idea, right? You know what I mean?
exactly.
I mean, it really does make no sense. And so I think God inside each and every one of us is trying to convince us of our
Yes.
value.
Yeah.
Because we have been brainwashed. I wasn't actually raised in church. I was raised in a secular humanism kind of as a religion, but it had that same religious overlay because we were still worthless. We were still only as good as what we did. And
Yeah.
it's just bondage in any flavor and any variety of religious overlay. It's just bondage. And so God has to heal us of these fractured ways. I mean, and if that's what
Yeah.
God is, like, who wants to do that? Let's forget that noise,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, right? And if that's who we
Yeah.
are, it's hopeless. Let's go stick our head in the oven. But,
Right.
you know, but God wants his kids free. He wants us fully alive and fully human and
Yeah.
track the divinity that we have. So we get it. I mean,
Yeah.
really, we really do get it all. But I think trying to recover from that toxic religious overlay, it takes a bit. I mean, we're still in
Yeah.
process, because the truth is we
Hmm.
don't know what we don't know. And
Right.
so, right.
Exactly.
So we just kind
Exactly.
of follow the breadcrumbs. So how
Hmm.
has that been for you? Have in kind of your journey detoxing from all this mess and all these kind of false identities, right? And all of that. How has that been for you in relationship with other people? Has it been have you just had to duke it out? Have you lost friends? Have you won friends and influenced people? How's that been for you?
It's been a smorgasbord of different things. It really has. It probably started for me back as late as 2007. That's really when I got the first inkling that perhaps my narrative was off. That was the very first inkling I had. And it went slowly through 2007, through 2008. And then I got some key bits of information from within me in 2009 that really kind of set the ball going. And then I kind of just kind of coasted along for a while. And maybe about 2014 or 13 or 14, that's when I really, took a deeper plunge, because by that time, a lot of what I thought I was doing by faith and a lot of things I thought I was believing for through grace really hadn't materialized.
Mhm.
And I just started asking the question, if it takes this long, then do I really want it? You
Right.
know? If
Knock
it takes God
yourself
this
out.
long to get me something and to help me, then what's the point? I go out here and do it myself.
Exactly. Exactly. This is not
And
work. Yeah.
yeah, so after 7, 8, 9 years of a hard, I went through about 7 hard years of a faith grind that was kind of unprecedented for me, where I laid down the law on the word and said, I'm going to stand on this, and it's going to be everything it says. I'm going to make it perform for me in these areas, and it didn't. And now, and this is not an indictment against God. It's an indictment against my understanding of what God required or needed or whatever. And I dug in that way. So about 2013, 14, I had come to the end of myself, the end of my willingness to work anymore. or to do anymore. And
Right.
then that's when it really started to accelerate. And then it took me to maybe the last year, where the last year's been just an explosion of thought and ideal and seeing things on a bigger scale. Because I started saying, Catherine, man, we got this thing too small. We're looking at this way too small, way too small. If God is as big as we believe God to be, then these narratives just are way too small. They can't work. They can't work for all of humanity. They can't work for all of creation. They can't work for all of the magnificence of what we understand or believe God is. These are just too small. And it just started like exploding into bigger possibilities and bigger ideas. And I love where I am today. I absolutely love where I am today. I've never had this kind of peace or rest before, ever. I am perfectly okay. I don't do any of the disciplines that I, thought were disciplines before. Um, I'm still hearing beautifully and wonderfully from within. It's growing. I'm seeing myself in a better light, humanity in a better light, where we're going in a better light, how, what's next in a better light, possibilities are expanding. So, it wasn't always, the smoothest of rides as it is now, but I do tell people, whatever your road is, whatever that journey is for you, you got to come to a point in a place that you're just going to say, I'm going to enjoy the journey, whatever that looks like or feels like.
Well, when you think about it, what else is there than a journey, right? So,
Yeah.
to have arrived would make the whole thing it's really that small, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
the beauty is in the journey and the relationship with God and with one another on the journey, because that's what matters. It's that
Hmm.
doing and learning and growing right together, which is
Yeah.
so meaningful, and and not trying to get somewhere, you know uh
Right.
so I mean, we celebrate when we reach milestones, but if that's all there
Right.
is, that's depressing. Regardless of how great it is, right? As you said, God
Hmm.
is so huge. Why are we
Yeah.
trying to contain it like that, or contain him,
Yeah.
or like that? And the beauties and the relationship along the way. And so I love the way you're describing how you're engaging, in a free way, in a relational way, in an open way, that
Yeah.
you're not putting limits and constructs that limit like who God is for you and who you are in all that, and who people are, who humanity is. You're in, you're out, all of that mess that we are
Right.
detoxing from. And that's beautiful. I mean, that is, and that's eternal, that's an
Yeah.
eternal thing, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
makes it
Yeah.
incredible, and that,
Yeah.
and operating in that way with one another, is gorgeous. That's heaven on earth, is become
Yeah.
one, the way we were originally intended to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so that's so beautiful. And apparently it's working for you. You
Hmm.
talk about fruit. Well, you've got peace, you have joy, you have freedom,
Oh, yeah.
and relationship. And I mean, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to someone who's like, well, I'm kind of grappling with some of the old things, and maybe there's not eternal conscious torment, or maybe whatever there is. How are you, how help someone out who's kind of grappling and sort of saying, what, I'm kind of scared, or whatever. What, give us some brotherly advice here.
Back to 2009. One day, I was in a moment of a place where I'd been very often throughout most of my, at least adult Christian journey in ministry. I was in that moment where I thought God was condemning me because I wasn't doing enough. I thought I was hearing, like I had always heard, Kyle, you're blowing it. You're not taking advantage of this time. I need more from you. And I remember feeling disgusted again for the umpteenth time, thinking, God, I just can't get it right. I mean, I've tried every modality, I've tried every system, I've tried every routine to try to make sure I give you more time every day, and I guess I'm incapable. And I remember I was laying across my bed, feeling dejected, feeling as if God was on me again, telling me that I'm never going to reach anywhere in ministry because I just can't get it right. And I remember just laying there feeling so dejected, and I heard from within me for the first time, son, when are you going to trust that you already have everything you need to do whatever it is that I called you to do? And I remember I jumped up off the bed and I thought, then all of a sudden all these scriptures that related to that started like filtering down, like, Jeremiah and this person and that person, all these things. And I'm like, that's right. I have everything. And I remember saying, if I never go to church again, you mean I still got enough? If I never pray again, you mean I still have enough? If I never read the Bible again, I still have enough? And to every question I asked, it just kept saying, yes, you already got it. You already got it. You already got it. And so I remember feeling, first of all, I instinctively like, yep, yep, no question about it. It just resonated. It felt right. It felt like it was just what it was always had been. So after that experience, number one, I never felt that way again, that I wasn't doing enough. Never again. Instantly gone, forever. And this was a seemingly a lifelong battle up until that point. Yeah. So I use this example to tell people this. From that moment, I made up in my mind that whenever I hear something from within me, no matter how contradictory it is to anything I'd ever learned before, heard before, knew in my mind, I was going to go with what I heard within, because of that experience it gave me, that feeling it gave me of completeness, of wholeness, of peace. I said, I'm going to stick with whatever I hear from within, no matter how contradictory it is or scary it is or whatever. So, that would be my advice to people. Everyone's journey is not the same, so it may not work that way for everyone, but I do believe that we're all going to hear from within. And what we hear from within will contradict what we've been indoctrinated with, even though we don't understand it as indoctrination at the time. Yeah. And my advice again, go with what you hear from within. You will always feel better, regardless of the fears at the time, regardless of how skeptical or trepidatious it may feel at the moment. You will feel a peace that you have never felt before about whatever it is it's telling you.
Yeah, I mean, God leads through peace. And so there's something like you're one with him. And so he's leading you. And so where that's not where it looks like, wow, that kind of flies in the face of what I was taught about. Well, I mean, so who gets to be God? Is it what you learned, or is it
right
with God and how much he cares and leads us? And if there is, it's amazing how that stuff irons out over time. You're like, well, I know this in my knower, but how does that work with this scripture or this whatever I learned? And it's amazing how God irons those things out. But I think we run into danger when you sort of violate what you kind of know to be true inside, and you squelch that voice instead of to listen to all these other external voices because they've got degrees or they've got a name in front of them or whatever. God is all about leading his kids. And so so who are you going to follow? And so if there is a disconnect, trust God to help iron things out for you, because by all means follow peace. Right. And there's just so much that flows out of that, and clearly it's working. You've got such gorgeous, you exude that peace, you exude that love, and oh my goodness, like ding ding ding, I think that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Imagine that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're kind of getting near the top of our time. Any final words of advice that you want to give?
I would just say to everyone listening that, again, this is a journey that we're all on. And I know we like we like the familiarity of what we understand and what we believe we think, what we think we believe. But there's going to come a time in every area of your life where you're going to be challenged with new information in every single area of your life. There's going to be times where a way that you used to do it may not be the best way to do it anymore. There's going to come something that's going to be easier, faster, or less strenuous to a way to do it. So I encourage people. We're in an information age, as they call it. We're in a time where consciousness is we're stepping into this higher consciousness at rates we haven't done in our lifetime before. Where our understanding is increasingly developing, and we're seeing things about ourselves and understanding things about ourselves that we've never probably understood before, seen. So don't be afraid. Just don't be afraid. The fear you feel, the trepidation you feel, the worry you stress you feel, they're all indicators. They're trying to tell you something. Fear is not meant to tell you don't do it or don't go or stop. Fear is meant to tell you you shouldn't fear it. You shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't feel this way. It's here to tell you this is not a normal feeling. And if you find out why it's trying to get your attention, then it's easier to begin to flow into the peace and the that passes all understanding. So I would just encourage people in that way. Once love becomes your center, and you see yourself as being perfectly loved, and you start to feel yourself as being perfectly loved, and you're starting to you personally seeing yourself as perfectly loved and understanding yourself as such, then fear really loses its voice because it just doesn't have anything else to point to anymore. And that's part of the journey.
Yeah, that's so gorgeous. Well, wow, Kyle, this is so awesome. If people want to get in touch with you, find Kyle for your speaking engagement or for whatever you have. So how do they get in touch with you, Kyle?
Well, you can go to my website, kylelbutler.com. I got to do some updating on that website because I haven't been about it in a while. But it does have all my social media links. So that's why I point people there, because you can click Facebook, which is my main platform, but also my YouTube link is there and my Instagram link. So you can get to all of my sites there at kylelbutler.com. But I do have to update the website a little bit because I noticed the other day, Kyle Butler Ministries across the top.
Oh,
It's like, yeah, well, that was then.
Some things.
So,
it's all
but
good.
So don't, if you see that, don't get afraid and think, oh my God, he's going to preach at me. No, I don't want to preach to you. But hopefully I can say some encouraging things to you about you, which really are going to be centered around how loved you are, how magnificent you are, how great you are, how good you are. And if that's preaching, then yeah, I'm guilty.
Absolutely. Preach the good stuff, the good stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kyle. I love you so much. Everybody go find Kyle and give him lots of money. You have a donation to support Kyle Butler Ministries. How that is. Go find him. He's amazing.
God will bless you.
Yes, that's right. God will bless you. That's right. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much once again. And I hope we can touch base and you'll come back again sometime soon.
Absolutely. 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 Thank you so much, Catherine. You are one of the examples of bright shining love that I never get enough seeing and hearing from. So thank you for all that you do as well for humanity. And you are just undeterred in your mission to let people know how loved they are. And the world needs more people like you. I was going to say more Catherine Toons, but there's only going to be one Catherine, so we don't need duplicate little Catherines, but we need more people with the vision and the heart to inspire people through love and by love and for love. So thank you as well for what you do.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Love you and everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this. Share this with someone who needs it. And go seek out Kyle and all his different venues that he's on. And everybody have a fabulous day.